Town of Winslow, Maine, special town council meeting, Wednesday, August 19th, 2020, at 7 p.m. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Ben Twitchell?
Yes.
Jerry Clarion?
Yes.
Steve Russell is not here yet. Trish is not here. Jeff West?
Yes.
Lee Trahan?
Yes.
And Ray Karen.
Yes. Can we all please raise, face the flag, and pledge of allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of the minutes of the previous meeting, none. Communications, council appointments to the Kennebec Valley Council of Governments. I know that Jerry just signed up. We like to have 2 people. Is there any volunteers for the Kennebec Valley Council of Governments?
I'm interested, but I'm not sure how the meetings are accessible.
Why don't we talk after the meeting then?
Okay.
And then we can, there's 2 members that have been on. I think Ben was on,
Yeah.
and Jerry's been on.
Gone for 8 years.
Why don't you talk to them, outside of the meeting and see if you're interested, and then we can put you on if you're interested. If
Okay.
not, I'll probably go on but
Yeah.
you're welcome to it, let me tell you, that's for sure. Okay?
Let me know tomorrow. if you
Yep,
can,
just
so we
let
can send that in.
Paul know sometime in the next couple of days, that'd be great, Lee. Thank you very much, okay? Any public comment tonight? No public comment, we'll go on to old business. There's no old business. Obviously, tonight, the new business is Order 17-2020, providing for the authorization by the Town Council to amend the Town of Winslow 2020-2021 fiscal budget. Can I have a motion to open?
So moved.
So moved. Ben, seconded by Jerry, and discussion. I think we can have a little bit of a discussion as to why we're here tonight. Obviously, when we went through the budget in March, we had a revenue projection and we had expenditure projections, and we knew right off probably about maybe a couple weeks ago when Paul mentioned to us that at the time now that that revenue sharing was going to fall about $100,000 to $150,000 short. I'm sure there was some other revenues in there that predict, but right now, given the state of the affairs that we're in, Judy set the tax rate according to the budget that we set, and the tax rate was at this point, when Judy did it, was
16.2.
16.2. Of course, we had tried not to raise taxes this year.
19.
19.
I tried.
Yeah, I was going to say, okay, well, good.
You
We're
don't like
good.
that one, did you?
So right now, that equates to about a $356,000 shortfall. So that's why we have about the 0.5 increase in the mill rate at this time. So we have a couple options, obviously, and now the discussion is we've got to make up. If we want to keep the mill rate at 18.64, we're going to have to make up about $350,000. And one of the things I want to say up front is that we had the auditors in the last couple of weeks, and so we did an audit. Every year, we budget out of the surplus a certain amount that we feel is necessary to balance the budget. Last year, we were around $700,000. We usually don't have to use all of that, so this year, again, that held true, is that of that $700,000 that we were budgeted to use for last year's budget, $400,000 was reallocated so that the fund balance only decreased last year by $300,000 instead of the $700,000. So I just want to bring that up front initially. So this year, of course, we have again budgeted in the surplus for $700,000. If we took that $400,000 and applied it to this year's budget, that means that the surplus, we would have an additional $400,000 to use. Now, I'm not advocating that, but I think it's something that's noteworthy before we take up further discussions.
Through the chair, if we left it the way it is, right, no changes, what happens?
Judy, would you, I can try to explain it, and I can explain it. Why don't I give it a crack? Right now, one of the things that happened on the last year's budget was that the Homestead Exemption Act went up from $20,000 to $25,000 on the deduction. So, and what also happened is the state also is reimbursing us on that extra $5,000, 100% of the valuation that we lose. So they're reimbursing us for that. Given that, right now, what it is, so for a $100,000 evaluation, if you had the homestead exemption, a $100,000 valuation on a house right now is you would pay, even with the 19.29 mill rate, you would pay $50 less in property taxes than you normally would last year. That's because of the homestead exemption. If your value of your house is $200,000, that means that you would pay $5 additional in taxes this year on a $200,000 evaluation of a house. Now, if you take a look at that whole population of people, that's about 75% of the town is under that category of either paying $50 less in taxes or $5 more in taxes. The other 25% to 30% of the properties, that would be landowners, people that don't qualify for the homestead exemption, what they would pay in additional taxes this year would be $56 on a $100,000 evaluation of your property. So that would be what the increase on that property would be. And that's just something to think about as we're discussing this. So even if the mill rate went up 0.5, that would mean that 75% of the population of the town of Winslow would either see a reduction in taxes or a modest increase in taxes. If we bring the mill rate back down to 18.64, that means on a $100,000 evaluation, you'll probably be saving around $100 this year less taxes, and you would be, of course, you would be, if you're a $200,000 valuation, you would be paying, you wouldn't even have an increase in taxes, and I think it would be, how much, Judy?
If we went with the $400,000 from surplus, let's just say we had an 1864 tax rate, those with a homestead exemption would see a decrease. You'd end up with a $48,000 overlay instead of around $14,000 or $16,000. And it is $56 per 100,000 of taxable value. All of the properties at 1864 would just stay the same as last year unless they saw an increase in their value.
Right, right. So that's just something to think about as we discuss this. So whether what we want to do. So I ask the pleasure of the council to open up discussion again. Yep, go ahead, Lee.
Through the chair. I'm just curious to know, we've heard kind of the residential side of it. How about the business owners and how that affects? Is that equally affecting the business owners as well as the residents?
If we went up to the 19.29, that would be $56 on a $100,000 valuation. So obviously, if you've got a $250,000 business, then you would be paying about $150 to $170 more dollars in property taxes for this year.
And if we stay with the old rate, then basically their tax bills would be the same.
Yes, that's correct. The $100,000 valuation would be $100 less for taxes, and if you had a $200,000 valuation, you wouldn't pay the $5 extra, you would pay something a little less, and obviously, I don't know how much, but...
Right.
Yes, Ben?
Yeah, through the chair. This year, with our budget we did last spring, we put in for $774,000 out of the fund balance.
Yes, that's correct.
If we use that 400, we're over 1.1 million out of fund balance, basically.
Well, what we didn't spend last year was $400,000. So of that $740,000, we would actually take away that money. It wouldn't be more. That's actually money we have more in the fund balance. So of the $750 we budgeted this year, we really, if you look at the deduction in the fund, that would be that we would only reduce the fund balance by about $300,000 to $350,000. So that's additional revenues that we had this year.
Now, another question. How much we have in the fund balance at this point, after we use that $774,000?
We have about $4.1 million in our fund balance right now. Well, actually, that was what we would have budgeted. With the increase, Paul, we're now at 4.5 million. So right now, we have $4.5 million in the fund balance.
That's if we don't do anything with that 400.
Correct.
That's if we don't do anything.
Yeah.
Yep. And, you know, just to give a little, you know, Paul and I met last, a couple of days ago, and when in March, when we were going through this, we said, you know, hey, we need to look at capital, we need to look at some things that we can deduct from the budget, you know, and start thinking about the reduction. So if you look at some of the things, the savings that we have to date, and this is just for discussion, I'm not making any recommendations, these are just for discussion purposes, is the Public Works. We didn't hire an employee, so we're one minus there, that would save us about $50,000. The Bassett Road, right now, Paul, can you comment on the Bassett Road?
They were gonna come in today to start reclaiming, and I shut them off last night till I know what we're doing today.
Yep, and the Bassett Road right now is $240,000, so that's what we have budgeted currently for the Bassett Road, the Marla Bassett Road that we're doing right now. We put a hold on that. If you look at, you know, and we looked at this right now, you know, all these things are extremely needed in the community, obviously. We have a park and rec truck right now that we have not received yet. That was about $30,000. So these are some of the things that I wanted to bring to the meeting, just to give you a little reference of, you know, of maybe, and I'm open to any suggestion, you know, that anybody would have right now. If you look at the mill rates that we're looking at here, if you look at, a mill is usually worth about $600,000. So one mill in the town of Winslow is about $600,000. We're looking at a little under a 0.5, so we're looking at right now, that mill rate would give us about half a mil. That would give us the balance we need, so a half a mil. So a 0.1 mil is equal to about $61,000. So we're looking at that if, you know, that's just also for discussion purposes, so.
If I may,
Yep.
one thing I'm dead set against is not doing Bassett Road. That just puts us further in the hole on our road maintenance. So, I mean, we can't even consider that, I'm sorry.
No, I agree, but it's just.
No, I understand
that's
why
the
you did it.
That's the only account that we have cash.
Right.
Other than that, if you start cutting $200,000, you're sending people home.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying.
That's why I
we can't do that.
put the brakes on
It's
it.
gonna put us further
I
behind.
realize that.
And we can't really go further behind.
No, I know.
You know, and just for discussion purposes, I'm not
Where does that
promoting.
if we were at 4.1, where does that put us percentage-wise? Do you know, right off the top of your head, maybe?
In reference to,
With the auditor and what? In fund balance?
For what the 12 to 16% that they,
I don't know, they haven't come, These are rough numbers he gave me yesterday. They're not completely done, the audit.
With the,
These
you
are
know,
big numbers that he's throwing at me.
yeah, with the savings of the 400,000 and going back up to 4.5, even with 700,000 that we budgeted for this year, bringing it down to 4.1, we were still not in what I would call financial trouble for the bond rating and the bond interest rates at that point in time. We still had some leeway in that. I don't know how much, Jeff, but we weren't at a critical level yet. But obviously, we keep inching down to that level.
I believe it was 7 to 8% we don't want to be near, because then they jack up.
Point of order.
Go ahead. Yes, that's true, Trish.
Through the chair, what would happen if we had no tax increase? How long would it be before we could get our tax bills out?
Judy?
Well, I anticipated the tax bills to be out in the mail within the next couple of weeks, because I had started the gears in motion on last Friday and last Monday. So this is sort of a screeching halt, and I'm gonna have to start over, so it's gonna be another 2 to 2.5 weeks.
Yep, and that's part of the reason why we're here tonight, because I didn't want to wait till the next meeting. I didn't even want to wait till next week, because we need to make a, somewhat of a decision on what we're going to do, so Judy can prepare and set the mill rate.
So, through the chair,
Yep.
basically, are we gonna push the tax due date back? Because now we're shrinking that.
Yep, Judy, I hate to ask you to come up to the mic. Could you come up to the mic so that if, the people that are listening outside, that they would be fine? Yep.
Okay. What do you want to show you here?
Jerry, could you repeat your question, please?
Now I gotta think for a minute. Would we push, if there's no tax increase, would that push the due date for the tax collection back 2 or 3 weeks?
Quite honestly, I think you've always set a relative time frame on your due dates. And I think that the first few years that I was here, the tax commitment was later, and there was a really small window of time. But we've been pushing that tax commitment date back so that would give them more time. So I think it's really up to the council to say, do we want to give them an extra couple of weeks or not? I think October 10th is the first due date, and I think for the most part, your residents are used to that date. And I know that they've been asking for the tax bills for the past couple, thank you, for the past couple of weeks from the tax collection office. But I don't want to use COVID as an excuse either, but it has been a lot of work this summer to get caught up, to get us to this point, just to try to get the commitment date at the same level that we've been at the last 5 years. But I think people are very understanding, and I think they understand that there's going to be a situation where things are just going to be a little bit delayed like everything else has been lately. So I think we've been, trying to explain that to our taxpayers, that we are trying very hard to get it out in time, but October 10th is still the due date. I think we've all talked about the budgets that's been approved and where we think the tax rate's going to be. Obviously, it's a work in progress, and it gets to that certain point where I finally, put the hammer down on all of my final assessments, all of the numbers that have come in for the budget, and start setting the gears in motion. So October 10th, today's the 19th.
Yes.
And again, if there's no glitches, I'm thinking probably in about 2.5 weeks. If I can get it cranked out over the next day or two and then next week.
Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, through the chair. If we went with a .56, you have that pretty much put together, right? If we decided to go with that.
Everybody got the memo that I had sent to Ray
Yes.
and Paul and Audra. And that was, actually the first year I'd ever really done that, with going beyond the town manager aspect. And I thought that it was only fair to you guys to know how I came up with a number and why. based on the budget and the projections. And I think that, once Ray sent that out to the rest of the council, it was sort of an eye-opener as far as saying, well, we were pretty much under the impression that we were going to keep it at the same tax rate, and we were hoping that our projections were going to be correct. But when you've got main revenue sharing and the lack of sales in the area, then you're not going to get as much as you had hoped for. Then you do have to deal with those shortfalls. The main revenue sharing this year is actually more than it was last year, but it's less than what you projected it to be. And over the past 10.5 years since I've worked here, I've always worked with Mike on finalizing that number, not finalizing the number at the end, but making sure that he sees my work and that we work together. So then we make up the tax rate and send it off to you. But so basically, when I heard that you decided that you wanted to try and keep it the same and just to sort of hold off on everything, I just stopped everything and went over to Audrey and I took all the paperwork back. So just sort of in limbo at this point.
Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, I know that when we did that budget in spring, our commitment was 0 increase. But just like Councilor Jeff was saying, we've had some problem getting money to do roads, and we did budget that for that road. I hate to change that up. I wanted to give that information.
Yep. I think we're all aware of the fact that over the last probably 5 to 10 years that we've been robbing some from our surplus to balance our budget every year and stuff. We have a situation this year with the Homestead Exemption Act where we're actually seeing, even though the mill rate's increasing, we're actually seeing a reduction for 75% of the population of the town of Winslow. And I think at some point in time, we were hoping revenue sharing right now is 3.7%. We're hoping that next year the legislature will bring it up to the 5% necessary. If it does do the 5%, that hopefully it will be. If it gets there, then we're looking at pretty much being able at that point in time to perhaps get another influx of money, and that's if the economy goes where we would be in pretty good shape at that point in time. Maybe at that point in time to start replenishing our surplus, start replenishing our capital fund. But those guarantees are not there. Obviously, we can't have a crystal ball to foresee what that's going to happen, and we don't even know what the state revenues are going to be. So that's not something that we can rely on and stuff. We're bonding. We're looking at in February of next year just to do regular maintenance. We are looking at bonding for 2.5 or higher municipal bond for just routine road repair that in the past we have done with money that we have been able to replenish in the capital budget and stuff. So if you look at the fire trucks we just bought, we bonded for those fire trucks because we haven't been replenishing the capital into our funds, and we're forced to bond, just as the state is right now. And those are things that, if you look at a municipality, is that you don't want to bond for that, because usually by the time you're not even paid the bond off, is that you're already needing to buy roads or other type of equipment and stuff. So, I think
At this point, I'm going to wait for you guys to make your final decision on your budget so that we can move forward. But this is the first time I've ever had this happen to me in my 30-plus years as an assessor, and that's perfectly fine. That's your choice. The projections that Mike brings forward are projections, and we've never had the same exact tax rate set as what he's projected. So, but once I get it, I'll crank it out as soon as I can and just work hard on it and try to get it out as soon as I can.
so. Go ahead, Ben.
I got one more question through the chair. What is the percentage of the people in Winslow that have this homestead exemption that maybe other ones could get that to get paid back from the state?
Well, in one of my department head reports, while I was working from home, and maybe this is a win-loss or a win-win, I'm not totally sure, but I took it upon myself to do a mass mailing to all of those that I felt qualified. And in fact, the state had extended the deadline up to the commitment date for people to get their homestead applications in, as well as current use programs, the Betty qualified for personal property. As a result of that, we ended up with 250 extra homestead exemptions this year, which is above and beyond. And they were very, very appreciative of that. And the other thing that happened too is we had more businesses applying for the business equipment tax exemption. I'm going to hyperventilate with this thing on.
You're all by yourself. too,
Wow,
but-
I know, I'm like all by myself. Did it ever look smooth? No. But anyway, those are a couple of things that are in the memo as far as seeing a huge exemption increase. I mean, we lost a lot of taxable value base. The homestead exemption typically was at, I think, 62.5% reimbursement. Now it's at 70% reimbursement because of the increase. The Betty exemption is typically a 50% reimbursement to us so that we get some of that back. Because of the factor between the amount of property that we have based on the Betty, we got it up to 59% this year as far as getting a reimbursement back on that, which is good, instead of the 50. I think it was 55 or 59. So there were a couple of things in play going on. One was the homestead exemption. There might be maybe another 200 that probably could qualify. And we talk to them as soon as they come in.
Thank you, Judy.
Well, to restate the obvious again, is we're about $350,000
Yes.
short.
About
So-
376,000 will bring it down to 1864.
How much, Judy?
About 376,000. I'm
76?
sorry, no, that's our valuation base. My bad.
346.
That's our valuation base.
Thought it was 346?
46, I thought was what you
Yes,
told me.
that's probably right. I was looking at my valuation base.
Okay.
Well, our valuation base, though, it is 376 because of the exemptions. We only get a certain amount of that back, and it pushes, it's complicated, and I would really like to entertain a workshop maybe this winter with you all so that you can see how
Yeah.
the calculations work, because some goes in, some comes out, and it's a moving target all year long up until the commitment date. But it might be a good idea to sit down, especially with the new town manager on board, and just have a workshop of some sort.
Yep.
If we took 400,000, or you found something to offset 400,000, you'd end up with an 1864 tax rate and 48,000 in overlay. And we've typically gone with 16 to 20,000 in our overlay, which
Yep.
is minimal. It's,
Yep. So, either, I don't want to,
Can I make a comment?
yep, go ahead, please.
Listen, this just in my opinion, I would like to see the rate stay at 19.2 and leave the $400,000 that we're putting into the fund balance, because we don't know what next year is going to look like. Every projection is that next year is going to be worse, and we may be happy to have that extra 400,000 next year. And this year, it's not affecting the bulk of the taxpayers tremendously with a no rate increase. That's just my opinion.
Could you repeat that?
he's soft-spoken.
What?
We can't hear you, Paul.
Yeah.
What I was suggesting is we stay with a 19.2 rate. It's a minimal impact on the taxpayers this year. We leave the extra $400,000 that we're putting into the fund balance, because we may need it next year, because everybody's projecting next year worse than this year. It's just, our revenue sharing may be half next year what it is this year, because it depends what's going to happen in the state.
You just don't know.
And if we use up too much of our fund balance this year,
Every year.
Every year we don't know.
Through the chair.
Yep.
Well, one other thing I'd like to ask Mr. Peter over there.
You want me to stay up here?
Do
Now,
you
if you could, yeah, you'll be back, but go ahead.
Peter, do you see the school department looking for more? Just, if we're gonna make a mess, we might as well make a big mess.
Well, like you, we don't know what type of reduction is going to come from our 279s. That's our funding formula. We expect something to come from that. But as you know, when everything shut down in March, we had some things that didn't run. For instance, athletics didn't run. We took some of that athletic money and bought ahead into this year's budget to try to help with some things, to help us get to the budget that we're in today, if you recall. So at the end of this past year, we were able to put a little bit in our undesignated fund in anticipation of us being cut on our 279 as well. So if that happens, I think we'll be able to cover ourselves, unless it's this gigantic amount that we can't, but we have been able to put a little bit in our undesignated fund. For that reason, we didn't spend anything. We made sure we didn't spend anything to be able to help if this were to come for us.
Thank you.
We ran some figures too. I just want to add to the conversation, and in no way am I recommending this, but Paul and I said, well, let's take the Public Works, let's take library, let's take administration, let's take Park and Rec, and say we furloughed people 1 day a week for the rest of the year. We would save at that point in time only around $270,000. So I'm just opening that up also as a bit of information. Nor do I think we shouldn't do that, but there are municipalities in the state that are forced to furlough people, right, Paul?
Yes, well, places are laying off.
Laying off.
They're furloughing completely.
Yeah, yeah. And nor do I even remotely suggest that. I'm just adding it to the conversation as... So thanks, Paul, for that recommendation about the 19.2. I think that it needs to be a combination of a reduction in the, a little addition to the mill rate, but also using some surplus to counterbalance that. And if you look at a 0.1 mil increase, that's $61,000 there. If you look at a 0.2, it's $123,000 there. So if there's a combination of increase, and you would still see a significant deduction in taxes for 75% of the people. If you did a 0.1 mill rate, that $56 per $100,000 evaluation for the rest of the people would be dramatically down to about $10 per $100,000 evaluation. So I'm just putting it out there and saying that would be in whatever mill rate increase we would bring up, then we would cover the remaining deficit from taking from that $400,000 of the fund balance that we would not spend for this year. Go ahead, Ben.
Yes, with the chair. So if we did go with the .56, that means we could get that other employee, Public Works, which is absolutely necessary. We could do the Bassett Road and get the truck, I mean, that includes all the stuff that you mentioned that we'd have to cut if we didn't do it.
If we went to the 19.2,
Yep.
and we funded it all through the fund balance,
That 400,000.
we would be able to get everything, the budget would stay, everything would stay in place, and what we haven't gotten so far, like Paul could hire his employee, Amanda could get her truck, and then those are, that would be the budget that fulfills what we had proposed for the 18.64 budget. Yes, Lee?
I know, we're kind of going around and round, and I understand we don't know what the future is going to hold as far as income, revenue sharing, anything like that. But what hasn't really been brought up is the impact of the school and raising of the rates that the residents haven't even seen yet, and they won't see until October. I think it's absolutely horrible for us as a council to possibly give them a double hit and increase that amount even more than what they're already having to pay for.
I completely agree.
So I'm thinking I mean, I know I'm still new at this, but I'm thinking, why don't we take that 400,000, apply that to where we need it, keep the rate where it's at the 18.64? Is that
Yes,
correct?
18.64.
Keep the 18.64. That would allow more residents to receive even more of a discounted tax rate. Am I wrong in saying that?
You're very correct in
All right.
saying that,
And then
yes.
I think due to the circumstances that we're currently in, we have no idea how long this will last. A lot of people are still hurting today from what's happened over this entire summer and this whole calendar year. I think we owe it to the residents to do everything we possibly can to show them that we're not going to increase the taxes even more. Take care of what we need to with that surplus, and maybe find creative ways next year in light of what might happen. Thank you.
Yep, and I think that's fine if we're going to do that, but again, I'll say it again, is over the course of the last 10 years, is we have robbed from the surplus. We are at the level now after, even if we don't spend all the money from the surplus, where that 700,000 next year will start, in the hole, $700,000, because we're not going to be able to go back into the surplus because we're down at some type of level that would be critical for bond ratings in the future. We're bonding for our roads, we're bonding for fire trucks. We do not have enough going into the budget, into the capital fund, to fund what we're doing here in the town of Winslow right now. So I understand that, we're at an opportunity this year where the homestead exemption went up to $25,000. And that 75% of the town of Winslow will see a reduction, a reduction in taxes, or just a little bit of an increase in taxes. And the other 25% are going to see a $56 on a $100,000 evaluation. Now, I'm not saying that that's the right, that should be left alone. All I'm saying is some combination of the two here so that we can start to replenish and say we don't have to go into surplus. We don't have enough money with revenues and taxes coming in to pave our roads or to do some of the projects without bonding that we normally should be able to take from the capital budget. We don't have enough revenues for that. Keeping the mill rate at 18.64 is, and I understand that everybody's having a hard time right now, but we're kicking that can one more time down the road where we're just going to be faced with, I don't know if you've driven through Sunset Heights lately. The roads there are just terrible, just terrible. Benton Avenue, the roads there, if we don't address that somehow, we're going to keep bonding for things that should be in our capital budget. And that's what I want to warn here is, it just says next year's council is going to be faced with some decisions that, and maybe rightfully so. Trish, do you have something?
I completely agree with what Lee said. I'm not comfortable asking for more taxes when the fund balance is literally our taxpayer money sitting there in an account. It's our savings account. Like, if we can take the money out of the fund balance and not affect our bond rating, then that's fine. Yeah, roads have always been an issue, but that's from 10 years ago. And we're gonna bond $2.5 million to fix Sunset, and Bay Street's going to be fixed, and Benton Ave's gonna be fixed. Like, that's all going to be addressed without having to raise taxes. We've already decided all that.
Yes, and I agree. The only problem with that is you're taking out a 10-year bond, and you're going to use roads, you're going to fix roads. That 10-year, that $2.5 million bond is going to fix probably good majority of the roads in Winslow, but you're paying that bond off for 10 years. So that ties up, again, some of the money in the town of Winslow that
Right,
we
then we
would
have to have a
normally not
plan
be
in
able
place
to
for
use.
how we're going to fix the roads as we're fixing them. There has to be a plan in place. We can't just every 10 years take out a $2.5 million bond and hope it works. That's
And that's what I'm...
on the Public Works Department to come up with a plan so that we can keep up with it and not have to do this every 10 years.
They keep coming up with it, and we keep cutting the cap. Is that true, Paul?
Then that's our responsibility at budget time
Pretty
then.
much.
With the exception of the roads. I 100% agree with Lee. Because not only do we have to think of everyone, we have to think of all the businesses in our town as well that are really, really, really struggling.
And all I'm saying is a modest increase in the mill rate right now would put in the capital so we don't have to do that.
That's fine. I'm not in support of that.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Oh, that's fine. So if I could, if somebody wants to make a motion on the
Just one or
council.
two readings.
It's in order, should be
Kind
two,
of don't have to have.
unless
Two, but I think we can waive if we.
Waive second.
Waive the
if
second.
you have two-thirds, if you have a two-thirds.
What's the pleasure? What's the pleasure of the council? What, somebody want to make a motion, or?
Are there any capital monies, like trucks or anything like that, that we can look into?
Amanda has a truck for 30,000 that's ordered, but is supposed to be here in the next couple of weeks, but has not come in yet.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead, Ben.
Through the chair, I'd like to make a motion. I hate to, because when we went through the budget last spring, but things happened that we could not foresee. And like you said, 75% of the people in our town is going to take a deduction, even if we go to the .56. And I make a motion, we go to the .56. That way we can do the things we need to do, that we already agreed to during the budget session. And that 400,000, which we didn't even know about until about a week ago, that goes back into the fund balance to bring us back up a little bit so that we can keep our bond rating.
Second.
Second, so you're making a motion to go from 18.64 to 19.20?
I hate to, but yes.
And I second.
Second it, discussion?
I don't like it.
Discussion?
Can I say something?
Judy? Yes, oh, for sure.
The council can't vote on a tax rate.
Yeah, we'll just, yeah,
You
that,
just have to, I think you have to sort of make a motion that the budget stay the way it is.
Okay. I make a motion, the budget stays where it is.
Second.
Or you do the 400,000 or,
yep,
sorry.
that's okay. No, that's fine, that's fine. So,
Can I just make a point?
yep, go ahead.
We have a very
We're having-
healthy bond
We're in
rating.
discussion right
We
now.
have a healthy bond rating, correct, right now?
We do right now.
And taking $400,000 out of the fund balance would not drop our bond rating to a drastic level where we could not borrow the money that we needed at a good interest rate.
That's correct.
Yeah.
You
Just
are
wanted to say
correct.
that.
I think that going to the 19.2 is too high. I think we have an opportunity to lower a little bit. But we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? If no discussion,
It is.
is that a roll call? So we have a motion on the floor right now to go from 18.64 to 19.20. Roll call, please. Hmm?
To stay the same.
To stay the same, yes, yep.
Ben Twitchell?
Yes.
Jerry Clarion?
Yes.
Patricia Ayer?
No.
Jeff West?
No.
Lee Trahan?
No.
And Ray Karen?
No.
So,
So, for the sake of, I'll make a motion right now. Well, let's open it up for discussion before. Anybody have any? Yes, Ben?
Yes, as the chair. I mean, once that was voted down, we only have one other option, to use that 400,000, basically, to bring it back to
You
where
can
we
do
were.
a combination of, increase in mill rate with, cover it with the rest of the remaining of the fund balance if you wanted to. Right, Judy?
Say that again?
What we could do is, we could raise the mill rate up, and then the remainder of the deficit of that $370,000 would be made up through fund balance funds.
Well, the budget that's been approved now and our valuation base is a 1920 tax rate.
Yep.
So what you need to decide tonight, I would assume, is whether or not you want to put more into the fund, revenue that I use to offset the tax rate,
Right.
Yep.
or amend your whole budget expense.
So you could make a motion to put 200,000
Right,
extra fund balance and then the building.
right.
Yep, okay, okay.
Because apparently we can't set a mill rate.
Right.
Yeah, yes, oops, I'm sorry, you're
But you can
absolutely
get to it.
correct, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for that clarification. So I guess right now is trying to decide on a level of fund balance that we could use to kind of offset the increase in the mill rate. We could say we could use whatever's needed in the fund balance.
And that, oh, excuse me,
Yep, go ahead, Lee.
through the chair. That number, is that currently at 370 something?
Judy, what's the
What
number?
was the question?
What's the number?
Oh, 370,000 would probably be just right. You just wouldn't have as much of an overlay. It would drop down to probably 28.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'd say we just use that money out of that
Be official,
account.
make a motion.
Oh,
Be
I make a
official.
motion that we use the $370,000 that's needed to cover that for the tax base out of that fund, out of that account.
Second.
Second, discussion? The only thing, again, I would say, and it's just my opinion, is I would hope that if we cover all of that with the fund balance, it leaves us in a pretty tremendous hole. I was kind of hoping that we could come to an agreement that we would be able to increase the mill rate a couple tenths. I know that, but just take so much out of the, of the fund balance. And I think it sets us up.
He beat me to my motion, so.
Yep. Same.
What's that?
So he beat me to my motion that I was gonna make, but, so you get a motion, you get a vote.
Well, if you want to have a discussion, then we can have a discussion on, not that you have to make a motion, but on something that you would accept.
I'd almost split them in half at this point. Half out of the fund balance and half in tax increase. Would be my thing.
Go ahead, Ben.
To the chair. Do we have to vote on Lee's
Yes, we do.
Yes.
before we go with what?
I didn't make a
He
motion.
didn't
I
make a
know, but
motion,
I'm
just-
through discussion.
Yep,
Yeah,
Okay.
Either voted on it or Lee changes his motion.
Yep. If you defeat Lee's motion, then we open it back up for further discussion. If that's the end of discussion, could I have a roll call vote, please? And the thing right now is to use the entire 370 out of surplus to cover the increase in the mill rate. Go ahead.
Ben Twitchell?
No.
Jerry Querian?
No.
Patricia Ayer?
Yes.
Jeff West?
no.
Lee Trahan?
Yes.
Ray Perry?
No.
So that's defeated.
We're back opening up the discussion again.
Make a motion, we split it between the raise in taxes and the surplus. The 370, whatever it is, 6, 4.
You have a fixed amount you want to put as far as from surplus.
Yeah,
I think we have to do that.
188,000.
Well, because they're having,
Yeah, no,
gotta have
I-
a number in there, so.
I'll second it.
I'm not the chairman, but I'll try to keep things moving.
Yeah, I'm just kind of calculating, thanks. I'm just kind of calculating through my head some of the things here. I just want to make sure the amount.
What would .25 be?
0.25 of a mil.
0.25, yeah, 0.25. yeah.
The-
0.25
That would be
times
the mill
600,000.
increase, sorry. through the
Yeah,
chair.
that would be about $160,000.
Mhm.
And that would leave for the surplus about $200,000.
Is it okay to make a quick comment again?
Yep, go ahead.
I just want you to know real quickly that a calculation I did, if you offset it right now with 300,000, you get an 1874 tax rate, but only 14,000 in your overlay, just so that you know. Great relationship.
And we had, what, 16,000 originally in the overlay?
Mm.
Myself, I would be comfortable with
Because we can always hope we get some of that back,
we can.
or not use some of that, I should say, like prior years.
Could you restate your motion, Jeff, just so I...
I make a motion, we use $188,000 of surplus and make up the rest on the tax rate. Whatever that comes out to.
Did you say 188?
Yeah. That's half, right?
It's about half.
My Winslow
Yeah,
math.
yeah, that's about half. That would be about $25, $26 for, on a $1,000 valuation for the rest of the population of the town of Winslow, and would be a deduction of over $100 for a $100,000 valuation, and be under, obviously, no tax increase or tax refund for the $200,000 valuation if we did that. Is that correct?
If I can print these numbers tomorrow, I can send a memo, a new tax sheet for you.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping for like $250,000 that we could, or $275 we could take out of surplus, and a little higher number and be a little less on the increase of the mill rate. But we have a motion on the floor to split the difference, to use, again, Jeff, so that Lisa knows. Are you all set with that?
I am.
Okay, go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, I got a question on that, through the chair. Judy, you mentioned that what would happen to bring it up to the 1874 from the 64?
That would be.
If we
from
took 200,000?
300,000 for surplus and a decrease in the overlay
But you need 300,000 to do that.
to make it 1874.
Okay, if in discussion, then motion on the floor. Could you repeat the motion on the floor, please,
Yep,
Lisa?
it's for 188,000 from surplus and the difference onto the tax rate. Go ahead with roll
Yep,
call.
go ahead with roll call.
Ben Twitchell.
Yes.
Jerry Clarion.
Yes.
Patricia Ayer.
No.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
No.
Ray Karen.
No.
Actually, it's tied. Yep, it's a tie.
You want to amend my motion, go ahead.
Yeah, well, now you have 180. I'd like to make a motion that out of surplus, we take $250,000. Judy, what would that do to the tax rate?
Judy, thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Don't put her on the spot like that, it's hard.
Well, just sit at the table.
Oh, just doing the best we can here, that's all. I mean, it's unpleasant, it's unprecedented times, and we're just doing the best we can.
100,000 raises it.
Yes, they're 250,
So it's
right?
probably gonna be just under 1890,
Okay,
maybe
Okay.
1884. I think yours would have been more like 1890
Yeah,
Yep.
half and half.
with a small overlay.
yep. If that's the end of discussion?
You need a second.
Oh, give me a second, I'll second Jeff's. I need a second, I made the motion.
I'll second it.
Second, Jeff, okay,
Thank you.
all right. Okay,
Roll call.
let's do it.
Can we get,
Ben Twitchell.
Yes.
Go ahead, Lee.
I just, through the chair, if I could just get clarification on those numbers again, please?
Yep, go ahead, Lisa.
Ray's motion is to move 250,000 from surplus.
Right, and the difference would be
The tax rate.
in
Would
June?
probably go up around 23 cents, maybe-ish.
It would go from 18.64 to 18.8 something, 8 middle of the
It has to round out
18.8.
so that the numbers are always balanced and equal, which
Okay.
is what the overlay is for.
Thank you.
Yep.
So basically, all we're asking is for about $150,000 right now, is even $120,000 of that tax increase and taking the rest out of fund balance. So that's what we're asking.
Okay.
Okay. If no more discussion, can I have a roll call, please?
Glenn, are you still yes?
Yes.
Jerry Corrigan.
Yes.
Patricia Ayer.
No.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
No.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
All right, so we got a 4-2, 4-2, sorry.
Yep, 4.2 increase. That takes care of order
Through
number.
the chair.
Yes, go ahead, Jerry.
Okay, we got to have a wait on the second reading.
Yep.
And I put a motion that we waive the second reading.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor to waive second reading. Any discussion? End of discussion. Can I have a roll call again,
Yes,
please?
Ben Twitchell.
Yes.
Jerry Corrigan.
Yes.
Patricia Ayer.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
And Ray Karen.
Yes. So, yep, no discussion on it, but, and I want to just say that we appreciate Judy, you coming in tonight and being under the gun. And I'd like to appreciate, I'd like to thank the counselors and the department chairs. What?
Chief wants to say something?
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I know what he wants.
I had brought some news to the chair, to Paul today. We have been awarded a just over $97,000 grant to purchase SCBA that's over 15, to replace SCBA that's over 15 years old. It's 30, we now have less than 30 days for me to accept the grant. I know there needs to be a resolution, but I'm looking to the council to go ahead and give me permission to accept that money to replace those SCBA.
Make a motion?
Second it.
Go ahead.
Can we add a resolution?
I don't know if we can do that.
No, it's not on the agenda, so.
I know it's not on the agenda, and I'm not looking, the next council meeting will be beyond the 30-day window, and I don't have the authority to accept the grant formally.
I think if we're taking free money, right, to replace equipment that we have, right? That sounds like the grant's a no payback grant,
We have a 5% match.
a 5% match.
I'll cover that out of my budget if I have to.
Okay,
We need the SCBA.
yep, so,
Make a motion to accept the free money.
Second.
Ben?
I've got a question. What is it we're getting the grant for? I don't understand.
Yes, sir. SCBA, self-contained breathing apparatus.
Oh, okay, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Yep,
I'm just trying to be right, that's all.
yeah, no, I
Well,
can't,
we've done that before, we did the
yeah, we
resolution
just,
after the fact.
yep, no problem, go ahead.
We have some more grants that we've applied for that are outstanding, so we're just trying to do our part.
Yep, no problem, thank you for bringing it to the council attention.
You're welcome, thank you.
And then- Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, through
Yeah,
the chair,
show of
how are our
hands.
trucks coming?
Oh, they're looking beautiful.
Are they?
Yeah, they are looking beautiful. I can, you know what, if you like, through Paul, I can send a weekly update with pictures and everything, because I get from the factory every Friday. So I can send them to Paul and he can distribute. That way, you're up to date.
What's the prognosis, Chief, on when they're due now? I know they're in the queue.
They're in line. I won't use Q anymore. They're in line.
Oh, okay.
I'm hoping by the beginning of September. So that's my hope.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for just informing us of that.
Yeah,
Can I have a show of hands, please, just in approving of the grant for the money for the SCBA's?
Thank you.
All those in favor?
I'll
Any
go push that
opposed for
button.
no? No, thank you very much. And again, before I adjourn, thank you very much for coming to the meeting. Thank you for the discussion of the council, and hopefully we've come to a good resolution here that we can move forward and still get a little revenue in the town. With that, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
So moved, seconded. All those in favor of adjournment, please, raise your hand. All those, meeting adjourned.